Appreciate that.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Mayor.
Morning.
Nice
So,
and warm.
Mayor, I just want to let you know, we are not anticipating a quorum this morning, so this will not be a special meeting of the board. It's just a briefing.
Okay. That sounds good. It's just 10 o'clock. Should we wait a few minutes or what do you think?
Let me just see who we've got. So we have First Selectman Moan, First Selectman Assard. We have Mayor Dunn, I believe. And we only had we had maybes from Naugatuck, Derby, and Ansonia, but they never confirmed.
Okay. Well, if the DLT's ready, we're ready.
Okay, we are. Well, good morning, everybody. This is John Dean from the Connecticut DOT. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning, and thank you, Mayor O'Leary, and to the NVCOG staff for setting up this special meeting. We appreciate your time, and we know that you guys are very busy, so we very much appreciate it. So we're here today to tell you about the new mix, which is what we're calling our long-term plan for the eventual replacement of the I-84 Route 8 Mixmaster. And so we have a brief presentation for you, and then we'll have time for questions and answers afterwards. But if anything comes up that you'd like to jump in and ask, feel free. Dan, if you could to the next slide, please. So the agenda briefly of today's meeting is we'll tell you a little bit about our team. We'll tell you about the history of the Mixmaster, the new mix program, our plans for public involvement, and then, as I mentioned, we'll get into the questions afterwards. Next slide, please. Okay, so from the Connecticut DOT side, Mike Calabrese is our division chief of highway design. Scott Roberts is the project manager for this project. Unfortunately, they were both unable to join us this morning. My name is John Dean. As I mentioned, I am the project engineer. From the HNTB side, Jake Argiro is the project manager. David Schweitzer, deputy project manager. Anna Mariotti is the public involvement coordinator. And Chris Fagan, who is not on the line at the moment, is our project engineer. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to give you a brief overview of the timeline of this study. So we actually started back in 2017, and we started doing some public outreach. We met with the mayor's office and NVCOG staff at that time. We started meeting with some of the stakeholders in the area as well, such as Chamber of Commerce, the hospitals. And shortly after we began this study in earnest, we got what we're terming here a fiscal warning from our management, where essentially there were, as you may remember, questions about the solvency of our special transportation fund. And so we were asked by our management to kind of scale back the study, and rather than look at a full replacement, to look at potential rehabilitation options for the future. So as you know, or may be aware, the rehab project that is currently under construction now is supposed to buy us about 20 to 25 years of service life. And so we were looking at what would be required in terms of the next major rehabilitation if we can't afford a full replacement. So we'll tell you a little bit about that later on in the presentation. It took a good amount of time into 2019, and from there we were able to transition back to kind of the full scope of the study and transition to what is called a planning and environmental linkage study, which it does a few things for us. It allows us to use the results of this study in a future NEPA phase, so that kind of springboards into that future environmental process. But it also allows us to look at various means of phasing. The funding questions of the eventual replacement are still looming large, and how to really pay for this project over a longer period of time, and along with other major initiatives in the state. So it does that. It allows us to identify what we're calling early action projects that can be broken out early, small intersection type improvements. We'll get into this a little bit more a little later in the presentation. Things that can help improve the transportation network in and around Waterbury, really immediately in the next few years, rather than the time frame that we're looking at of 2045. So we've been working on looking at conceptual alternatives. We finalized our needs and deficiencies study, and to give you an example of an early action project that is being implemented under the current rehab project, we are adding an auxiliary lane on I-84 westbound between exit 22 on-ramp by the Brass Mill Mall to exit 21 off-ramp, which will help the traffic flow between those busy interchanges. So that's kind of the history and of this study. But for a little bit more about the history of the Mixmaster itself, I will turn it over to David Schweitzer, and he'll continue.
Thank you, John. The Mixmaster is a prominent feature within the city. Next slide, please, Hannah. It's a 4-level full system interchange with stacked structures on the I-84 and on Route 8 to the south. I-84 runs in the east-west direction. It starts on the High Ridge line to the west, crosses over the Naugatuck River, and then passes to the south of the center of the city, where Route 8 is a north-south roadway, and that stays on the west side of the river through our study area. And both roadways have multiple service interchanges within our area. And now when we refer to a system interchange, we're talking about a ramp that'll go between I-84 and Route 8 or vice versa. And when we talk about a service interchange, we're talking about one that comes from one of these main lines down to the local level or back up. Next slide, please. Now, it took over almost 20 years to build the interchange here, and it took a number of projects. And within this area, there are over 60 structures. Next slide, please. And so then over these years, since this has been completed, there have been a number of projects for both maintenance and for also repairs and some seismic retrofits, and maybe some painting and illumination. And most recently, we've completed the widening of the project on the east end, where 84 now has 3 through lanes between Waterbury all the way through to Hartford. Next slide, please. And right now we're into the current rehab project. And with this, as John had mentioned, we're looking to add 20 to 25 years of service life to the interchange. But there's a lot going on with this. We're replacing the decks on both Route 8 southbound and Route 8 northbound. And then with the other 8 of the other bridges within the interchange, including both I-84 structures, we're doing a lot of deck repairs. We're doing a lot of steel strengthening to all of these bridges. And then we're also, repairing the substructures on these also. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, we have completed our data collection and we've completed our analysis needs and deficiency report. Now, when this interchange was built, it was state of the art. It was innovative because it had a smaller footprint with the narrower shoulders and the stacked structures. There are a lot of cost savings with this because we used the left-hand on and off ramps, so we didn't have a lot of flyovers or fly-unders with the ramps where they would come up in on the right side. And it was also innovative for the access it provided to the city with all the service interchanges. But things have changed. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Anna, can you go back, please? I'm sorry. Thank you. But things have changed. There are changes to the way we design and build roads today. We have new and improved guidelines for safety, design, and operations. We know what's safer. We know what requires less maintenance, and we know what helps reduce traffic congestion. And also, since this opened, traffic volumes have increased quite a bit more than anticipated. And also, trucks have gotten bigger and they transport heavier loads, creating more wear and tear on these structures. So in the year 2045, these 60 structures, they'll be 75 to 80 years old. They have some older details, which may be a little bit fatigue prone. And then we also have deck end joints that are consistently being reconstructed. And also on the geometric side, we do have limited shoulder widths. We have a lot of left-hand entrance and exits within this interchange. We have tight spacing on our interchanges, both between the system and the service interchanges. And then we also have some tight horizontal geometry with some of these ramps. And this is leading to a bunch of traffic congestion. Next slide, please. So between these deficiencies and the traffic congestion, this leads to a higher crash rate than normal in this area. There are a lot of merges, diverges, and weaves, and this leads to a lot of decisions for these drivers and a lot of speed differentials between the vehicles that are traveling out there. So this is leading to this higher crash rate. But next slide, please, Anna. When you look at this from a regional perspective, you can really understand the importance of I-84. I-90 enters New England to the north, but that cuts across through upper state New York. I-95 comes up the eastern seaboard through Connecticut, but this goes through a lot of major cities. So a lot of people will look to avoid I-95 and will find their way up to I-84 and bring us right through Waterbury and right through this interchange. So that's why this is an important interchange, and it's very important to go forward with this new mix program. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jake to walk us through what we're doing with the new mix program.
Great. Thank you, David. So what is the new mix program? The new mix program is a long-term planning study that looks to find a solution as to how to reconstruct or replace the interchange as it's reaching the end of its lifespan. It's anticipated that this will be phased over time, and it will modernize, improve safety, the functionality, and reduce congestion, and align the project with the city's economic and development and community goals. Next slide. Now, what are we looking at? Our study area here shown extends beyond the interchange itself in order to examine a wide range of design options. We're taking into consideration the area, not only including the entrance and exit limits of the interchange, but also the major arterials, the intersections, those local intersections, as well as cultural and historic resources. And we're also taking another deeper dive into the local road functionality. Next slide. So as David alluded to earlier, the traffic volumes have gone up substantially since it was designed and constructed back in the 60s. It was designed to accommodate approximately 100,000 motor vehicle trips per day, and that was using a predicted volume of 1975. Now we're at 190,000 motor vehicle trips per day that along this entire interchange each day. Our projection by 2045 estimates that to be at 225,000 motor vehicle trips per day. And combined with the operational deficiencies, this creates less than ideal conditions, as David talked about just a couple of slides earlier. Now, one of the very interesting things that we found through our study is that approximately 35% of the motor vehicles entering and exiting the interchange within that study area, looking at the previous slide, shows that people are jumping on and jumping off the interchange to get from one side of the city to the other. Next slide, please. John talked about earlier the investigation of what the next rehabilitation would be. And so through our evaluation, that would be taking place in approximately 20, 25 years. We explored the complete replacement of the stacked bridges on the 84 of the interchange because the decks would be nearing the end of its lifespan. So the focus of the rehabilitation, I misspoke, was not to replace the interchange in its entirety, but looking at a major rehab, focusing on the I-84 structures. What it ended up looking like was replacement of the decks would intake approximately a 16-hour duration of traffic impacts on a daily basis over a 4-year period of time. This would have major impacts to the city and the overall region, as those impacts would be very substantial. The cost was estimated to be approximately $1 billion in today's dollars, $2 billion in future dollars. So overall, the department decided to continue to look at other options for reconstruction in the future. Because remember, at the end of the day, we would have ended up with new concrete decks sitting on top of 80-year-old substructure, structural steel, and it would not have improved the conditions of the substandard shoulders, left-hand interchanges, narrow shoulders, and the modern safety standards that we see today. So what's our plan? Anna, if you go to the next slide. We're in the very early stages of planning that long-term, complicated reconstruction project. We're looking at various replacement and rehabilitation options, and all options include phasing the overall large project into smaller, more manageable projects. Why are we looking at that? That phased project approach is more manageable. It allows the preparation and the distribution of funding for other projects within the state. It's anticipated to have less intense traffic impacts by constructing improvements to reduce traffic on the interchange. And John spoke about those earlier opportunities for the area to achieve some early wins via some local road improvements and even enhancements on the interstate itself. And the next slide. So what are the types of projects we're talking about? The proposed early action projects. Those are generally focusing on what we refer to as high impact, but local road and intersection improvements that'll help reduce those volumes jumping on and off the interchange to get across town. Then we look at opportunities for near-term projects. And those are the projects more located towards the outer legs of the interchange that can be initiated before the core of the interchange needs to be reconstructed. Because that long-term project, that core of the interchange, that focuses on the 84, the Route 8 interstate roads, and all of the system connections that are required to be connected and replaced at that same time. We're looking at that as the long-term, more substantial, 20 years or beyond form of the crux of the project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna to talk about our approach to the public involvement.
So the intent of the new mixed public involvement program is to, of course, be inclusive and wide-ranging, reaching users and people who have different perspectives on how they use the highway and how it may impact their community. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is very high level example of the different kinds of groups and stakeholders we will be reaching out to. But I do want to point out that local community organizations and the public, that's a broad category, but this does include and will include a lot of grassroots outreach, ranging from residents and neighborhood organizations in Waterbury and community organizations as well. In order to reach effectively a wide range of people, you have to be accommodating. And so we are going to have various ways in which the public can learn about the project, ask questions, provide input, and stay informed. And these are scaled to people with different time constraints. Of course, we will have public meetings, probably virtual and, when safe, hybrid. And besides the typical public hearings, we're going to have stakeholder group meetings, and we're starting with those right now. Stakeholder group meetings are groups of people from a similar perspective, whether it's groups of large employers in Waterbury, neighborhood groups, environmental groups, where we talk to them and sort of get a sense of their opinions, from their certain perspective. Then we also are going to have a project advisory committee, which is it's not intense, it's not a significant time commitment, but it is more regular and consistent. So it's for those people who want to be more involved in the project on an ongoing basis. But it is important to note that everybody's input will be weighed the same, no matter how they, which type of meeting they attend. And then, of course, there are people who are going to want to know about the project, ask questions, and provide input, but might not want to go to any meetings. And we will accommodate them by making sure the website's always up to date, sending out email blasts with progress as the project moves along. The website will also have a comment form and a ask a question form, social media, and other methods to make sure people who can't always or may not want to attend meetings can stay involved. It's a high-level overview. And I guess with that, I turn it back over to John for anyone's questions and comments.
Sure, if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to. I see a hand up from Ken.
Ken is muted, so we're not hearing his question.
Ken, you're muted. Kenny Stanko, you're muted.
Mayor, Ken has two different connections running. I'm not sure which one the hand up is on the one that's muted on his phone.
I'll see if I can text him. Other questions? I have a few questions. Let me try to get a hold of Kenny here first. You guys go ahead.
So just FYI, MVCOG has all of its transportation planning staff here for the.
Yeah, Mayor, I have a question. It's Mayor Dunn.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Mayor, this is Mayor. Okay.
Mayor Dunn, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you could hear me or not. Yeah, I know. Oh, these have to go out to bid. I'm not sure if this is the design that's going on, but the company that did the I-84 project prior to the Mixmaster toward the Cheshire side in Waterbury, that company seemed to be a tremendous company. And watching that come around, that project, is there any way that the city or the state can pick who does the job?
So we are bound by the federal laws when we put projects out to bid. So we are bound to, if we pursue a project by the typical design bid build process, that award would be based on the lowest bid. There are also other We're very early in the process now. There are other project delivery methods that could be pursued. You may be familiar with design build. There are other similar alternative contracting methods that are based somewhat more on a quality scale, but typically these projects are awarded based on the lowest bid.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
You know, this is Mayor O'Leary, thank you. And no, you know, honestly, no criticism here whatsoever, but if you were to look at the last go around that Mayor Dunn might be referring to, I'm not sure if he is, on the Mixmaster work where the job was awarded to Walsh, and this is in absolutely no way, shape, or form criticizing the work that Walsh has done, because quite frankly, I think they've done a great job. But you know, when you talk about this low bid approach, it wasn't that far into the project that the scope of the project changed so dramatically that the price went up to astronomical numbers. I don't know. I just think that the invitation to bid, the low bid approach is flawed, especially on projects of this magnitude, but that's just my own 2 cents.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
It doesn't take long for the change orders to change the low bid. That's what I'm trying to say. But I guess I'll keep quiet on that. Listen, my other concerns are the obvious as the mayor. You know, we're doing multiple $1 million investments through the federal government with the Tiger Grant on the Freight Street corridor, through brownfield remediation that's occurring as we speak. And all of that, and a lot of that has been, you know, in cooperation with the great help of the Connecticut DOT, particularly the Tiger Grant project, which, as you all know, completely changed the face of Freight Street. There are national and international companies looking at that Freight Street corridor for projects that could be game and life-changing for the city of Waterbury, quite frankly. So obviously those are the concerns: economic development, obviously the environmental impacts, the impacts on the, you know, what the proposed long-term redesign of the Mixmaster could look like in the city, and what impacts it would have on the current companies and businesses that are located here in the city, that are, some of which are major taxpayers to our grand list. So I don't think that's a shock to any of you on the call, but those are going to be some of our major concerns. I keep going back to the conversations that were had, I don't know, 15 years ago, when we were talking about side-by-side, construction, which would have, had a huge impact on the area that I just described, where we have all this multiple $1 million investments going in. So I guess I'm a little bit anxious about it all. I don't mind telling you guys. But looking forward to all the alternate designs that may be out there, may be available, and seeing how it goes. Anybody want to comment on that?
This is Mark Nielsen with NBCOG. I just wanted to sort of go off of what the mayor just sort of indicated. The big issue I think the city is facing is what this project's how it's going to impact the city. And I think really looking at the local improvement projects is real critical, and not to be sort of short-sighted in the few that you might do, but really looking at how we can, reconnect. Again, if you look in the Mixmaster and Route 884, it basically divides the city into 4 sections. excuse me, yeah, so it really has created a barrier between those four areas of the city. So again, I think you, as you're going through forward with these local improvements, we really need to look at how we can, join the city or reconnect the city that has been so divided by, this expressway and interchange. So, and again, that's not just road improvements, but also the bike ped. The city is pushing for a greenway that goes entire north and south through the city. That should be part of this conversation. Pedestrian connections need to be looked at as well. So, again, the actual construction of the Mixmaster is, like I said, 20, 25 years away. And it's going to be hard for people to really get their heads around that time frame. So I think we really have to look at the local improvements.
And to echo Mark's comments, it's interesting what will transportation look like 20 to 25 years. And I see your projections of 2045, 225,000 cars passing through the city every day. But, I also, as you well know, if we continue to invest in the rail line improvements between here and Bridgeport, New York, up until COVID, we were doing pretty well, even with the archaic system that we have in place. Again, with the commitment from the state of Connecticut and the re-signalization and the sidings, we would probably see a lot of commuter traffic increased on the rail line if it becomes as efficient as the governor and the commissioner have stated in the future, in the future 7 to 10 years. So, it's I don't envy any of you. You've got a difficult job to plan and to figure all this out and to try to predict traffic flow. And, obviously from my perspective, the 84 East widening project that was completed just a couple of years ago has had tremendous, incredible positive impact on the city in the form of new businesses, new factories, enormous grand list growth, new job opportunities, new car dealerships. All of those businesses were not even on the drawing board until the 84 widening project became a reality. And, so looking, in my tenure as mayor over the last 10 years and looking to see how transformational that 84 widening project was on the east side of the city. Boy, I can tell you, it makes you almost dream a little bit of what it could be like if we could design a more efficient Mixmaster that would be user-friendly. And unfortunately, we had to do this Mixmaster repair job on the heels of the 84 widening project. So our residents and our commuters and our people didn't get a chance to enjoy the no traffic backups for very long. But having said that, I think once this repair job is done, and I guess it's a couple of years from now, but when it's done, I guess we'll be able to get back to driving through Waterbury without significant delays again. So I don't know, I'm just, from the mayor's perspective, I'm really grateful to DOT for the transparency of this process. And I'm looking forward to the public opinion as well. But at the end of the day, public opinion is obviously incredibly important. At the end of the day, it's, or at least my job for now is to see what the long-term impacts are going to be on the city and how it's going to promote the city of Waterbury's growth and economic viability. Anybody else have any comments for this great team?
Mayor, I believe Kenny Stanko still has his hand up. Ken, did you want to weigh in?
Can you guys hear me?
We can now, Kenny.
You can hear me now, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I had a confusion there with the between my laptop and my phone. I could not get my camera to come through with the video on my laptop. I don't have any questions on this particular job that's going on that's forthcoming to the new mix. But I did find out this morning that the pin and hanger project that's supposed to take place after this project, the 0173-548 pin and hanger project is now going to be combined with the project that's going on now. So there won't be another project on the Mixmaster after this one. It'll take place at the same time. I found this out by Dave Ferraro this morning. So I just wanted you to know about that. And anybody else that didn't know about it.
Can you explain what that project is and what impacts it is that will have on the timelines?
It won't add to the timeline from what I was told by Dave Ferraro. This is the pin and hanger project that would take place, was supposed to take place after the Mixmaster was done. It was, I believe, maybe an oversight with the DOT or the engineering company that was going in after this project to reset up scaffolding and repair this pin and hanger project. This is the same system that was the cause of the collapse of the Miami River Bridge, if I was told right. So they were going to do this project after this project was done, starting in 2023. We talked about this, Mayor, I guess a couple weeks ago in a meeting. I contacted Dave Ferraro about it. He didn't know much about it. But I did find out today that it's now going to be combined with the project that's going on now. So there won't be any more delays after the 2023 timeline is finished. There won't be no more lane changes, traffic backups. It's going to be combined in this project that's going on right now.
And to further on that point, Ken, we actually do, I'm switching hats right now from being on this design team for the new mix and going back to my project manager for the ongoing rehab project. We do have a coordination meeting tomorrow between the Bridge Consultant Design District and a couple other units within CONDOT to discuss this project and how we're going to fit it into the current rehab project.
All right, but it is being fitted into this project, as I understand it right now?
That is my understanding, yes. I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, the safe span is up there. You know, the traffic patterns are in place. It makes sense to do it now.
Okay, well, that's great for us to hear, especially, you know, what's going on now in Waterbury with the traffic backups and the complaints that we get every day. It's just an amount of, you know, calls and complaints. So, and thinking that this would be extended now another 6 months to a year. I'm glad that they decided to combine this. They weren't sure at first because we're still in planning, I guess, in design. But now that they did this, I guess we can all breathe a little bit sigh of relief for the commuters coming through Waterbury.
Well, we will find out more tomorrow with that meeting, and then, you know, if we can get somebody to report back to you, whether it's Dave Ferraro or myself, we'll reach out to you and let you know what the outcome of that meeting was.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Do any members of NVCOG board, is there interest in serving on the project advisory committee for the new mix? That is, the acronym is the PAC, and it will meet more consistently throughout the early planning process. I can send a follow-up email about this after the meeting, but I did want to put it out there.
Well, speaking as the chairman of the COG, I would say yes, definitely, positively. We will have someone from NVCOG on that advisory panel. I'll also have someone for your information for planning purposes. I'll also have a designee from the mayor's office on that as well. Okay, Hannah?
Thank you.
So we'll put that out to our COG during our next meeting and find out, you know, obviously we'll probably have a staffer as part of the advisory committee, but we'll also see if there's any interest from any of the elected officials to sit on it as well. Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thanks. Who else has questions or concerns? Anybody?
Well, just to follow up on the advisory committee, when do you anticipate starting the public outreach and public involvement activities on this project? Because again, it's fairly extensive and you want to reach out to a lot of different groups. So, again, I would advise, just, coordinate with the COG, because we can help either arrange things, advertise it or promote it, or reach out to people we have contacts with.
Thank you. The public outreach is in progress very early. We are reaching out to various stakeholder groups as we've defined them throughout Waterbury. And those stakeholder group meetings will be occurring in July and August. And our intent is to have the first PAC meeting sometime in September. And PAC membership, we're anticipating on recruiting people who want to be on the PAC from these stakeholder meetings, which includes, of course, the general public.
Sounds good, Anna.
Any
Anyone
further
else?
questions? Sorry.
I guess we've asked, first of all, we're very grateful for this conversation this morning, so thank you. We would like to get the recording of this and put it up on our NBCOG website, if it's okay with you all, if you could get that to us. And then, at your convenience, it's July and August, so city meetings are much fewer and far between, but I'm thinking after Labor Day, maybe we could start, having conversations with our board of aldermen, through some sort of opportunity that you guys feel is appropriate, and, some of our stakeholders on that side of it as well. So, and then we can work with the members of our COG. Obviously, there's a lot of towns that are going to be impacted by all this. So we want to make sure that we get the region very involved as well. So does that meet your timelines, sometime after the Labor Day, or were you thinking about trying to do something sooner in that regard?
I don't want to speak for John from CONDOT, but so I'll defer to him, but I do have what I think is the answer.
Okay, go ahead, Anna. Thanks.
I don't think that we will be doing the first PAC meeting before Labor Day. It's not practical. It's not good for outreach and turnout. I think it'll be after Labor Day.
Thanks. I'm glad to hear that, because I completely agree with you. Okay. And the interesting thing about it, as you well know, all of us in this world of virtuality that none of us probably like all that much, but the reality is, hopefully, I guess I get nervous when I read the paper this morning about this new Delta variant, but hopefully we'll be able to get back to some sort of in-person meeting. Not everyone, unfortunately, is privy to the technology to be able to attend a meeting like this. So it'll be much more inclusive if we can stay healthy and get people back. But I guess all that is a pretty big unknown at the moment. But I think waiting until after Labor Day will give us a better idea where we are in that area as well. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask you a question while I have you on the phone?
Sure.
I think last year, if I remember correctly, the fireworks for Sunday night, we held off on closing down the highway. We extended the closing because of the traffic. Do we think we need to do anything with that this year again? Because the lanes, they shut them down usually about 10 o'clock at night. And that's usually when the fireworks are breaking.
Maybe you could talk to the project manager and get his input. I'm not sure what the answer to that question is, Kenny, but it's a question
Right.
that's definitely worth discussing and bringing up. So maybe
Okay.
Maybe you could talk to Mr. Ferraro and
I'll
get
give him a call.
advice. Thank you. Okay. John, Dean, anything else?
No, that's all we have for now. So thank you again very much for your time, and we'll certainly be back for further coordination, and you know, we really want to make sure we have our ears open as we move through the study, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with the city of Waterbury and the COG and the neighboring towns. So thank you again.
Well, we're very grateful for the, as I mentioned earlier, the transparency and the lines of communications haven't been better. And, you know, our regards to Commissioner Giletti and the rest of your staff, we're grateful. This project, as Kenny points out, it's a little painful from time to time. Our current project, our phones are getting blown up with the, you know, with the traffic issues, but from a communication perspective and a transparency perspective, I'm very pleased, and I think I'm speaking for the rest of our COG as well. But you know, we'll just keep that keep the ball moving forward, and keep our eye on the prize, which is the finish line in 2023, and then the new initiative. So it's just we're kind of getting used to it around here, one thing after another, which is probably not the worst thing in the world. But thank you all very much for your time, and stay cool today. It's relatively unsafe out there already. So hopefully everyone will be okay. I think with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Okay, Rick?
Take care, everyone. Have a great day, great week. Happy 4th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, thank you again. We're grateful. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stay cool, everybody.